It is Saturday night once again. This is the Overnight Mouse Party. I'm Dan Foss, and tonight we've got Gizzard Gary. How's it going, Gary?
It's going pretty good. Thanks for having me.
And Gun Websites. How you doing, G-Webs?
Fair to Medlin. Thanks for hosting.
Guns Barbecue. How you doing?
Fair to Farland. Thanks for hosting. I gotta say, that intro, that might be my favorite intro you've ever done.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, I used to try and make the intros. Well, there were the old meme ones where it was just, memes that I had made. And then other intros were related to tried to make them related to the topics, but now they're just all random. So I've fed different prompts into the AI and then made up a bunch. It's a lot easier that way. Vulcan Rumble is out there. Gizzard Gary and Vulcan Rumble said he's here. No banner, no poll, no bracket tonight. No, actually, let me get the banner going. There we go. Bottom of the screen. There's email address, untacticalfoss@gmail.com, and a link for the Discord. You can send in comments, suggestions, or pictures within reason. And there's no poll because I forgot to do the poll again. And no bracket. There was an ammonia leak in the bracket. So we have to keep it contained until it's addressed. G-Web. Gunmetal Guy. And Guns and Barbecue. I think that's everybody that said hey. I finished. I got caught up on The Mandalorian. Started the Book of Boba Fett. Made it halfway through the first episode and turned it off. It was terrible. Terrible. I tell you, terrible.
What happens in the first episode?
Well, they show him escaping the Sarlacc pit. Which there was a book that was written that talked about how he survived the Sarlacc. His armor protected him, and it was just the joints where the acid kind of ate through. But so he crawls out, and instantly, somehow, I don't know how long he was supposed to be in there in the pit, but he managed to get fatter while in the pit, and that was kind of the first problem. The fat Boba Fett is a little off-putting. And he's kind of a weenie now. I got up to where there's a group of assassins that corner him and the master assassin. That's his sidekick. Kicks their asses. And then there's two of those pig guards that come in and help fight off. That's about as much as I could take. His assistant, his number two, I forget what her name is, but she's a master assassin, and he announces that she gives the title, or he gives her title, master assassin. What's her face? If you have an assassin, you probably don't want to tell everybody, this is my master assassin, because now everybody knows that's your assassin. So everybody knows what she looks like. Everybody knows her name. It probably will lessen her effectiveness as an assassin. I don't know. But so I switched over to Andor, watched the first episode of Andor. A lot happier with that. Ron Wayne's out there. Good evening. And I did watch some of the stuff you were talking. G-Webs, you were talking the other day, a couple weeks ago, about the special forces and all the controversy. When you were talking about it then, I didn't really know anything about it, and then kind of stumbled into a bunch of videos, and yeah, there's a lot of misinformation going around.
What are we talking about?
Oh, like Tim Kennedy and Jocko.
Yeah.
And what's his name? The SEAL that said he shot bin Laden.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, overall, it's none of that's going to affect my life. And so I don't care too much, but I'm not completely surprised. I probably didn't care too much because I know that just as a general rule, there is some embellishment that always goes on. It's just with some of the guys on the YouTubes that are making lots of money off of it have really embellished what they, their service record. But yeah, so I do now know what you were talking about.
There's a lot of that for sure.
Yeah, I guess in Tim Kennedy's book, he said that he got. Can't remember if he said it was something like medals of valor everywhere he was deployed. Every deployment, which, yeah, and because it was the guy from, it was another Delta Force guy because there were two that I kind of watched their take on it. There was a Green Beret and a Delta Force. It was the Delta Force guy that's like, well, if that's true, and he points back at. He's got his stuff hanging on the wall, points back at his medal, and he's like, where's your medals? Here's mine. But Mr. Knives is out there. Good evening.
I watched a thing where it's a guy watching Kennedy do like a rebuttal or whatever. Like, I don't really, I'm aware of the stuff that's happening, but I haven't watched I don't investigate it or anything. I haven't watched anything. Just whatever comes across, or whatever, somebody's having a conversation in front of me and I hear the conversation or whatever. But there's a video where that Tim guy is addressing a bunch of these things, and there's another guy watching him and going, nobody forgets this, or you wouldn't be fidgety here, like this, you wouldn't forget that. And we watch those kind of things and it's like, yeah, makes sense. Like, I think a lot of people just say shit assuming nobody's gonna check them on it or hold them to it, and then this is the internet. You can't really do that very long. You can do it, but it's not gonna last very long.
The biggest problem with his rebuttal video was he didn't rebut any of the accusations.
He handpicked a bunch of dumb shit, like, oh, whether or not I graduated. Like, technically I didn't graduate, but then I did graduate. Like, yeah, but
and he started out with the main argument that people will use when they don't have an argument is they're jealous. They're just jealous. They're making money, and then don't look at the man behind the curtain. But yeah, I probably haven't been a lot of people that are listening that have watched any of that. But I just wanted to mention to you that, yeah, now I know what you were talking about.
I've caught a little bit of it, which now it makes more sense to me what's going on, because it's just been a couple of random things, and I'm like, what have I missed? So this kind of fills in the blank spots where I'm so confused.
Yeah, it's definitely not there might be somebody who's paying that much attention that they mapped it all out, but yeah, it's like a lot of little something here, something here, something here, and eventually it's like, oh wow, there's a whole bunch of this going on.
I would, if I had served in any of the special forces, I might be more outraged over whatever. The only one that kind of bugged me, I guess, is the lone survivor. I forget what his name was.
The guy who was the SEAL that,
yeah, where it turns out that he probably dropped his rifle and ran. That's why he survived. That's
exactly. And nobody, if you don't challenge anybody on a situation, then it's like, wow, that was a pretty interesting situation that you just described. And it's like, why would anybody challenge them? Because nobody's been there. But then when you have 200 people that have been there that are like, what the hell, guy? Like, you're whining about something that some people did every single day, or some people that was just their job.
And then the whole story that was in the book, his book, he said that the Navy gave him a writer to help him write it. And then later on, he said the Navy wrote it and gave it to me and said, this is the story.
Yeah.
Since the beginning of time, too. Like, I wouldn't call it propaganda, but like professionally embellishing shit. That's probably been it. Because not everybody's a writer. And people that do amazing shit, you know, though, I'm saying like the Army has a PR department, so they're gonna put somebody on that kind of thing, I imagine, since the beginning of time. Probably
Find
the
it
Civil
really.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I find it really easy to keep your story straight when you just tell the truth.
Yeah, and you know, it was just the point that the whole story was given to him. It wasn't what happened, and where, you know, the Navy used it as a recruitment. That's all the stuff you see, like sporting events where they recognize veterans and stuff. That's all paid for by the military.
Oh yeah,
it's not teams doing it out of the goodness of their own hearts. It's advertising paid for by the military. I don't have a problem with it. It's just a lot of people don't realize that's why it's being done. So, you know, recruitment. Garage guys out there, good evening. But I put in the link, in the link in the description. One is for a New York Times article, and one is for the Four Boxes Diner video talking about that article, about the ATF and what he thinks Trump might do with the ATF, which I thought was yes, abolish the ATF, but a good step in the right direction is removing the enforcement side of the ATF. So turning it into like the EPA, where it's a regulatory, but there's no enforcement powers. He talked about giving it to the FBI, which we had kind of talked about. It's probably a couple years ago in a chat. You know, is there any use for the ATF? But I thought that's not a bad idea. He was talking about giving the power to the FBI, you know, to enforce it, and that the whole reason. Well, he brought up Ruby Ridge and Waco, where the reasons that the ATF does stuff like that is they're in competition with the FBI to prove their efficacy and to maintain their budget. But I don't. Have you guys seen the video? This video?
I have.
That's Four Boxes Diner.
Yeah, it's from either today or yesterday, I think.
Yeah, it was fairly recent. I know I saw it today, but no, I like Mark Smith. He makes some really good points when he does his videos, which I mean, he does a crap ton anymore. Seems like multiple a day. On one hand, I was like, yeah, taking away the enforcement side from the ATF would be a great step in the right direction. However, just then having that turned over to the FBI, I'm like, does it really change anything? It's just
That's
at that point.
that's kind of what I thought too. When I really thought about it.
Let's say perhaps instead of abolishing the ATF, we just take the F out of ATF.
That's kind of what I was thinking too.
ATF, that should be a convenience store. No, let's say because those conveniences aren't a right. My right to bear arms, right there, it's a right. Why is it being lumped in with these things, of a luxury?
Garage guy said ATF, FBI, YMCA, all useless. I disagree with the YMCA part, although you're probably going to get your stuff stolen out of your locker at the YMCA.
It's a great song.
But, it's they usually have a swimming pool. Well, at least the ones around here have swimming pool, which is nice. Place for people to go, communities to go.
Well, they have everything that a man can enjoy.
Ours here has a swimming pool, but apparently the swimming pool has recently developed some sort of crack or something, and they don't want to fix it, so no more swimming pool.
I've seen a lot of YMCA's where the swimming pool is like on one floor, and then underneath of it, maybe 2 floors even, like there's the access to underneath the swimming pool. And I guess I haven't seen a lot. I've seen a couple of YMCA's this way. So essentially the swimming pool is just hanging there in the building, and on top of it, it's, the deck and the swimming pool and everything, but underneath of it, you can just go underneath of all of that. So I could see if there's a leak, like that would be a massive thing to fix compared to a normal swimming pool. It's just a hole in the ground that they line with cement. You know what I mean? Like that's just patch the cement and keep going. But these, like the swimming pool is like, there's like a whole floor, a whole thing underneath, like classrooms and stuff underneath the swimming pool.
Well, if you put the showers underneath the swimming pool, that seems like that'd be the thing to do. That way, if you had a leak, you could just take advantage of it.
There you go.
Do you want to shower in pea water?
I mean, I already pee in my shower anyways.
Yeah, but you don't pee on yourself in the shower.
Try not to.
Maybe I do. Maybe
the barbecue likes golden showers.
Darling, let's shower together. You peed on me. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see you there.
When I was in high school, there was a swimmer who he would do that. After gym, when you're showering, he would piss on other guys because they couldn't feel it while they were showering, and he thought it was funny.
Oh, that
I never showered near him.
That was a stupid game that guys played when I played football. They just go up to you and be like, "Oh, can I get some shampoo or something?" So you hand them your shampoo. Meanwhile, they're just pissing on you.
Yeah, I would probably. I never had to deal with it, but I would probably just start swinging.
Yeah, it's amazing how quick that solves the issue, at least for yourself.
Garage guy said, "Remember Bill Murray in a swimming pool in Caddyshack? The candy bar." But so I
Do
thought,
not start swinging in the shower.
because Trump talked about cutting the budget and cutting agencies and slashing this and slashing that, and so Dettelbach said he's going to quit before Trump takes office, and
Really?
Yep.
Awesome.
and I'm not sure if he says that in the article, but Mark Smith said that he had said that. But in the article,
Yes.
basically said that cutting the effectiveness of the ATF, there'll be blood in the street. But he didn't say that exactly, but gave the old, every time anti-gunner talks about not being anti-gun, it's the blood in the street and
You mean so
Wild
you're saying
West.
Diddleback said that, not Mark Smith.
Well, he said I'm not sure if it's in the article. I just kind of scanned through it, but he had said that Dettelbach said he would leave before Trump took office.
Yeah.
What I'm saying,
Mark Smith
Diddleback is the
reported
one
that-
saying blood in the streets and stuff. He's the one crying blood in the streets if there's no ATF.
Yeah,
Okay.
that people don't understand how the ATF stops violent crime, and
And I'm the director, and I can't relate it, so all I can do is cry about it.
yeah,
Let's
think
send
the
him
track-
up to Chicago and let him get rid of that violent crime. Man.
and he didn't say blood in the street, but said that there'll be more violence if there's cutbacks to the ATF.
Maybe it's a threat.
they're going to ship more guns to Mexico.
Well, you
I
get
can
the
see it.
ATF with all those guns, and what was a couple of years ago they said they had all those guns that were given to IRS agents and stuff like that. Those people could get armed and cause trouble. Not outside the realm of possibility. Good for throwing out conspiracy theories here. But that blood in the streets is a real deal. I mean, they told us we were going to have that when we got constitutional carry back in 2015. And it's just been horrible here ever since. You can't go out in the streets without getting it all over your shoes, and it's nasty.
That's pretty much everywhere that constitutional carry was debated. That was the argument against it.
Blood in the streets, Wild West, Armageddon.
Yeah.
It's awful. It's awful. I'll tell you.
Vulcan Rebel said, "I think you're confusing the current Attorney General." He may have said the same thing, but Mark Smith's video is only about the ATF, and he said Dittelbach had said that. So I did not hear him say that personally. I'm just relaying what Mark Smith shouted at me while he was doing his video.
He was rather boisterous in that one.
Well, he normally is.
Yeah, but
and
he seemed a bit more animated to me, I thought.
I really like his channel. He deals in the Supreme Court realm, so you get a lot of insight into the Supreme Court. But you have to keep in mind that his opinions are his opinions. So it's his analysis of what he's saying, which doesn't always mean that's that's the way it is, or that's what's going to happen. When he puts out, there was a ruling on this case, which was not a gun case, but it can affect it. Gun cases,
Yep.
sometimes he'll kind of represent it as this will affect. Well, it won't affect it until it does. I mean, there's other people that do that too. Like, the Chevron deference and cases and stuff like that, where yes, that should technically affect gun cases, but until there's a ruling where that has affected that gun case, it doesn't mean it will. Just mean it
part
could.
Part of that too relies 100% on the attorneys that are taking those cases to the Supreme Court to go, oh, hey, so you just made this ruling and that could actually help us. So, and they needed to argue that. And crap, what the heck was the case? Oh, the Rahimi case most recently. Like that's one of those cases where I found the attorney to be rather inept when he was dealing with all the questioning and everything at the Supreme Court level.
There was just a Ninth Circuit case that I watched where, I don't know, because Rahimi was brought up, but it was interesting because I've seen a few cases now where Rahimi is used to buttress like the NYSERPA case, and because that's, even though was kind of a loss, within it supports the New York rifle and pistol ruling. But I don't remember what case that was. What it was. And there was
Rahimi again.
That was the domestic violence one.
Oh, that's right.
And that's why that was pushed up, because the government knew that was a bad looking case and they could get possibly a favorable outcome for them because Rahimi was such a not good guy.
Yep.
Yeah, because there was another case that just, I think I watched last week that I wanted to bring up, but I forget what it is. Because the state, it was interesting watching the state. Can't remember if it was California. I think it was California. And it might have been a magazine limit case. But they were using the NYSERPA ruling to explain why the 10-round mag limit is constitutional. And it's always interesting to watch the mental gymnastics happen. I don't remember what her exact, the lawyer's exact reasoning was, but she specifically brought up that to say that it meant that this is constitutional.
They didn't use the militia argument when we were supposed to bring, 21 grains of powder or some crap and this, that, and the other thing. So, because that's one that they like to mention a lot to try and justify magazine limits. And the thing that they pervert about that is that was the minimum you were supposed to bring, not the maximum.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it was in that case.
Because I remember hearing about what you're talking about, but I do not. It did not stick with me enough to recall.
Because I think it was in that case where one of the judges, it was a 3-judge panel, brought up the First Amendment and like the printing press and modern technology, should it only apply to old technology, the First Amendment, or because that's kind of the like you were just saying, that'll be used against modern gun technology as well. They weren't around during when the Second Amendment was passed, and one of the judges had brought that up and then used the First Amendment as an example. Well, would the First Amendment not apply to computers since they weren't around? Which is also something interesting to have the judge bring that up.
Would it be applicable? I just thought of this right now. I haven't thought it through, but to say like, well, what if there's a new religion? Like, where there's only the only freedom of religion you had was the religions that were available back then?
Well, the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster was ruled a church, and that's more modern. And
yeah.
And the Church of Fonzie. So there have been modern religions. Oh, it really just seems to be, for some reason, the Second Amendment and guns are by some people viewed completely separate from every other constitutional right.
Well, that's because other rights don't kill people. Which is a ridiculous argument, and I can say, or I could make examples where people are hurt by using the First Amendment just as much as the Second Amendment, but people don't like those arguments.
Well, if we're against killing people, why is abortion okay? Yes, I'll go there.
Not everybody agrees on a people, so that's what their variable is.
Ron Wayne asked, isn't there a Klingon church? According to the Google, no, there is not a Klingon church in the real world.
Tell that to Spock.
Are you saying Star Trek isn't real?
I didn't say that.
Just because it hasn't happened yet, doesn't mean it won't.
I just said there's no church of the Klingons. There is a podcast called Church of Klingon, apparently. Yeah, so it'd be interesting to see. Trump was saying he's going to do a lot in his first week and then his first day. We'll see what gets cut, how many cuts, what he tries to do. Fingers crossed. It's hard to tell because he says a lot of things.
Yes.
That was the big topic I had. So anything else we want to talk about?
could talk about drones. You guys got any drones yet?
No, and I don't think there's anything to the whole drone thing supposedly
Really?
going on. I think it's just the media magnifying what may or may not be going on just for circulation. You know.
Circulation or distraction from something else?
Well, Yankee says distraction. I would lean more just towards, it's a way to sell papers, but subscriptions. It's like anything, the satanic panic of the 80s. All these Satanists that are supposed to be running around. They're everywhere, behind every tree. It's like, well,
But
no.
on the other hand, if you are going to have dangerous drones, I don't think New Jersey and New York are a bad place to have them. I mean,
I have not looked into the story, but the couple of videos that I've seen, the drones have flashing lights on them. They have the normal lights they're supposed to have. So it's doubtful that it's anything nefarious. Otherwise, you wouldn't put lights on your drone.
Well, if it's a penetration test and they're trying to see where they can put them, then putting the lights on there would be to give everybody a false sense of security that it is just a good to go thing because they're complying with all these laws.
I would lean towards if it's not a private market test of drones, that it would be our government testing like they've done in the past, like the subway gas, where they've done tests spreading, doing a mock gas release in subways and stuff. Something more like that, either some aspect of drones going here or there, or they're testing out their own drones, something like that. But I don't think it's a foreign entity doing drone stuff, personally. Vulcan Rumble said the drone thing has a lot of people looking up for the first time.
Or we're going through the Leonid meteor shower that happens this time of year over December when the Earth goes through this debris field. It's possible that people that have looked at their phones their whole life never looked up before and are seeing natural phenomenon that they've never seen and they can't explain.
Yeah, or just planes. They're not realizing that it's a plane far away, not a smaller drone closer up. It's lights traveling through the sky, and they don't have a point of reference to understand the size or distance. Ron Wayne said, could be the Borg. Resistance is futile.
I don't know. I remember back when I was younger, I watched a tennis match between Bjorn Borg and John McEnroe, and McEnroe beat him. So resistance isn't futile. Is it Wimbledon?
I watched when it was McEnroe, Connors, and then Chang and what's his face sold the Canon cameras, the Rebel cameras, long hair, and then cut his hair later. What's his name?
I don't know.
McEnroe?
No, because Pete Sampras, I didn't care for him, but it's when Pete Sampras was number 1, and number 2 was the long hair guy that ended up in all the Canon Rebel commercials.
That's back when tennis was cool.
Yeah, there was guy in high school. There was a guy that I knew. Well, I knew his sister better than him, but he was on the tennis team. And when you see somebody who can actually play tennis very well, serve, oh my God, it's kind of scary to stand across the court.
You want to get the heck out of there. You don't even want to take that serve.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to play a lot of tennis when I was young because I practically grew up half a block from a tennis court. And, yeah, we'd play all the time. There was lights, you could play at night and everything else. But I was good at volleying back and forth. But serving, I was never. It's your big, tall guys that are usually the ones that's got a mean serve.
Agassi, Andre Agassi, that's the guy.
Oh, I remember him. Yeah,
he had long hair for a while and then cut it short.
That's
later.
it. Mm-hmm. Because he dated Tatum O'Neal, is that right?
I thought he dated a model or
Or
something.
am I thinking somebody else?
Oh. I don't think it was Tatum O'Neal.
Let's see. He's married to Steffi Graf. Oh, Brooke Shields.
Oh.
He was married to Brooke Shields, really? And he dated Barbara Streisand? Wow. This guy's been around.
He was the bad boy of tennis.
Well, yeah, McEnroe wasn't exactly a good guy, but
Well, he was a competitor, but he was one of the whiny kind of competitors.
he would yell at umpires and stuff like that.
They deserved it.
But I think he was a better player than Agassi. And if you go back far enough, yeah, Jimmy Connors was one heck of a player too.
I did like Connors. I didn't care for McEnroe. They said didn't care for something about Sampras I didn't like.
How about Borg?
I didn't really watch him.
How about Boris Becker?
Becker, meh. I was not a dedicated viewer, but probably one of my favorite was Michael Chang. When he was number 3 in the world, he had the most hustle on the court, but he kind of had to because he was so small.
See, one of my favorites was this guy named Vitas Gerulaitis because I just thought that was the coolest name. It's like, how many people have a name that sounds like a disease that was just discovered or something, you know? He's got a bad case of Vitas Gerulaitis. Oh. Poor guy. And I shouldn't say that because he's dead.
The Vitas Gerulaitis got him.
No, he died by carbon monoxide poisoning.
Oh, was it in the garage?
It was in his swimming pool. They had a improperly installed propane heater,
Uh-oh.
and it's bad.
What? Like it put stuff in the water or something?
I don't know the exact deal on it. Vulcan mentioned Billie Jean King. Now we're switching genders. Talk about Chris Everett, too.
Yeah, I did. I adjusted the pipe on the furnace here, so there's less of a leak, it still leaks a little bit. So
Put some duct tape on it.
but it's a lot better than it was. So it might take me longer to pass out. Yeah, and the Battle of the Sexes, Billie Jean King and who was the guy?
Bobby Riggs.
Bobby Riggs. I think it was a work. I don't think it was real.
That was in Houston Astrodome. I remember watching that. Huge TV audience.
You know, he was retired, and I think he threw the
Well,
match.
he had previously did an exhibition against Margaret Court and beat her, and he made some remark in the media that he could beat any professional woman on the tour. And so Billie Jean had to, put her head out there and said, "No, you can't. I'll kick your butt." Well, you can tell who the old folks are in this chat. I'm not sure.
Yes,
Young
welcome
people are
to,
saying, "Who? Who? Billie Jean King? Who?"
welcome to Late Night Tennis Talk. Serena Williams, when Agassi said she was the best female tennis player, and there was a controversy over why did you say woman? Why not just one of the best? And it was nice that he didn't back down. And she said in an interview on I think one of the late night shows that the men's game is completely different than the women's game. She had played the 50th ranked male, and he trounced her like three straight sets. I will say probably one of my favorite female players was Gabriella Sabatini. But I think that was more, I found her very attractive. She was a good tennis player too, but also attractive. I haven't watched any tennis in a long time.
You don't even hear about it much.
I think the last time I even watched tennis was probably Djokovic, when he kind of was hitting his peak. Vulcan Rumbles asks, do you think Nancy Pelosi will stay in Germany and ask for political asylum? Yeah, she took a tumble and hurt herself over... Which country was she in when she fell?
Luxembourg. Heard she fell down some marble steps.
Yeah, I heard she got banged up pretty good.
Well, the rumor I heard was she had a broken hip.
Oh.
Well, what kind of jackass leaves marbles on steps? Like, come on.
Yeah, they made the whole steps out of marbles. Just had a big pile of them. Seems kind of dangerous to me.
Oh, so what else is going on?
If we're done talking about tennis, I put a image into the what's called a Discord server. What do you think of that?
Those are neat.
Is that an accurate poll or accurate results to a poll?
Let me take a look. I didn't have it open.
I thought it's interesting because it's rating if the platforms are Democrat or Republican, or how much Democrat or Republican the different platforms are. They say Reddit is the most Democratic as opposed to Republican. Instagram is Democrat. TikTok is Democrat. Facebook is somehow Republican. YouTube is Republican, and X is the most neutral according to this.
I
You
wouldn't
agree?
have thought Facebook leaned right.
There's nothing about Facebook that leans right, in my opinion. I don't use it hardly, but the reason I don't use it is because of that.
I quit using Facebook like 20 years ago.
Can you enhance that? Can you zoom in on it? Look at that.
I don't know. Let me see if I can. And nope. Oh well, let me open a browser and then hang on. I got to bring that down here. Let me open the browser. See if that makes it a little better. How's that?
Way bigger. And then YouTube being 50% Republican, only 45% Democrat. Like, I don't see that either.
Yeah, I'm not buying that.
X, I don't know, really. TikTok,
X, I would think, leans way more red, personally, now anyway.
but even then, I would call it like what they're calling Facebook, 43 to 50. I wouldn't call it like an overwhelming red or anything. Anyway, this says it's from the Pew Research, so I don't know if it's real or not, but it seemed fake to me.
Oh, Pew is one of the big pollsters.
They're real, right?
Yeah. I don't know. It's hard to say because when you're on any of those platforms, it's going to feed you what you look at. So, you know, if you see more of one side or the other side, it might just be because that's what you looked at. So it said, hey, you like this stuff. Here's a whole lot more of it.
Good point. When there's really piles and piles of the stuff you wouldn't even be interested in.
Yeah. So I have no idea. And then always with polling, how many people did they poll? Who did they poll? Did they poll more of, you know, more Democrats or more Republicans? And that can skew the polling. I don't think the Pew did anything. I wouldn't think that they would look to create an outcome, but just depending on how the data was collected can affect the results you get, whether intentional or not. So it looks like overall, well, for these, I don't know, is it maybe the Democrats are more likely to be online?
Well, in my experience, that's not the case because I've only talked to people. You know what I mean? Like most of the 99% of people I talk to are probably not Democrats, and that's been the whole time I've been online. But I think that's like you're saying, like if you just go online and go straight to the Republican side of the room, how do you know what's going on the other side of the room?
Yeah, so I don't know. I always, you know, any poll, take it with a grain of salt. If there's an aggregation of polls, then you probably will get a more accurate average. So, you know, it's hard to tell from one poll. Vulcan Rumble said they're more likely to have high-speed internet in a major population center. Oh, I was pondering today, kind of along the lines of Star Trek. Is future technology, is it is it a self-fulfilling prophecy where it's driven from past imaginations, like the Dick Tracy communication watch, and now we have smart watches where you can communicate with your watch? Or is it the same intelligence that creates that will eventually create the smartwatch anyways, because that's what's in us? Gizzard?
So run that by me one more time.
Future technology,
Mm-hmm.
is that an outcome of past creation? People, thinkers from the past, futurists who think up things. So people in the future see those ideas and work on making those become reality? Or is it just those ideas will happen naturally in people? So they're a natural outcome, not somebody specifically working on.
Like somebody's seen the tricorder on Star Trek, so they try to build a tricorder, versus we're going to need a way to tell remotely if someone's got a broken arm.
So, I mean, a lot of the things that, for example, in the original series, a lot of the things you saw in there, we've pretty much approximated now, but I don't think we did that based on the fact that we saw it on Star Trek. I think it was our natural progression to go there. That's my opinion. If that answers your question.
Well, that's your answer to the question. Yes.
It is, right or wrong.
I don't. Well, I'm not looking for a right or wrong, just opinions. It's just something I happen to be thinking about today.
Right. And I just was thinking about it off the cuff, and that's where I would go with that. So.
Is I've heard like people in NASA will talk about being inspired by Star Trek and sci-fi movies and shows and stuff. So that kind of got me thinking: is the work that's being done driven by that, or is it just people are able to think of these things, so they're going to think of them eventually anyways? Just my daily musings.
I think it's more often a new material, a new process, a new thing happens, and either somebody who creates it or figures it out has time to think about its applications, and they come up with shit that's new or unusual or something. I think that happens more often than someone hearing something that's like, I'm just saying, fiction or a song or whatever, and then try to pursue the concept before. When a concept just comes out of nowhere and people try to pursue it, I don't know what that's called, versus here's what we got, here's what we need, and let's work on that. Because I think that happens more often, right? Like, but just a more, what do you call it? It's more obvious, or it's more rare, so it gets illustrated more often when let's say the tricorder and somebody pursues it, or like the cell phone or something like. The flip phone is a lot like the one communicators in the one episodes of Star Trek. So, somebody might say, hey, we made this flip phone based on the TV show. So then everybody hears about that and it becomes a big thing when it's really only one instance, but there's been I mean, how many inventions based on like, hey, we need to figure out how to keep this clean, or like, I wish there was a way to make this round instead of square if we could only make a new process for that. You know, like I think that happens just in the dark or hidden from public view just way more often.
But I think you could make the argument like the flip phone thing. Was it so much because it was emulating Star Trek, or because Star Trek realized it would be a good idea to have a communication device that folded, and we come to the same conclusion years later, and it's just a logical thing that people would do. So a lot of the things that Star Trek imagined are things we would imagine today, or anybody would.
Right. The next logical step, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or maybe like 3 logical steps ahead or something.
Ron Wayne said, I believe we've been conditioned so much by sci-fi that we inadvertently lean towards it in the creation aspect. Vulcan Rumble said, sci-fi creates political will, PDA, tricorders, iPod, language translator, AI, talking ship computer.
But like having a computer translate in real time, that's something that we needed a long time ago. Like whether or not somebody fantasized about it in a science fiction or in a movie or a book or something like that, we needed. Like that was going to happen no matter what. And somebody could have had a big theory about it and made a big, oh, you know what it was? What's that Hitchhiker's Guide? They throw a bug in your ear, no, a fish in your ear. You know, like that's sci-fi. Like unless somebody comes up with a, you know, re-engineers a bug or a fish to do it. We just needed a way to translate. So, you know, that's been evolving ever since 2 people with different languages bumped into each other, right?
Oh, it may also be you can't separate the two, where it's a the invention is a natural outcome of human intelligence, and there is some influence of the past sci-fi that creeps in because it's
we're all working towards the same goal, and people are talking about it versus people doing it. Which comes first, right? Like sometimes one, sometimes the other.
Yeah.
How often do we look at sci-fi that re-evaluates something that already exists? Like, let's say the telephone existed for a long, long time, and a lot of fiction would just be like, I'm picking up the telephone. How many fictions while I'm talking like while the telephone was attached to the wall and it had like a dial or buttons on it, and you had to go walk over to it. There's a whole bunch of people who don't even remember those days. But like, you know, the phone was for generations ubiquitous or whatever. Like everyone knew that there was a ring, you'd walk over to the phone, you had to pick a thing up, you had to put it to your ear. And even in the first ones where you had the one piece one, you had to talk into the wall. Like even then you're still talking to the wall. Like until 1990s, I guess there was, well, in the 80s maybe there was like cordless phones, but up until then all phones were the same. So I don't know if you know what I'm saying.
I'm not sure.
Like, so they're all the same and we're all thinking of the phone, but then picking it up and walking around with it, like kids are just saying, like that it's the natural evolution is to not have to walk over to the wall. And like we all knew that it had to eventually be in our pocket, and I don't think the pocket is the end. I think the little thing you wear, like the button on your shirt, like what do they call that badge? The
comm badge?
Yeah.
You know what it is? Yeah. Well, they call it something different in the newer ones because it does more than that. But essentially, you know, the phone in our pocket isn't the end result. Like it'll be something in our ear, it'll be in our glasses, it'll be on something we wear. But you know what I mean? Like it'll just be kind of like the fish. It'll just be something that's with us and it'll translate. Or in this case, I guess the telephone, you know, be able to communicate. Well, I guess that's another element. Like, okay, so the tricorder or the flip phone Okay, that's great. But what about a different piece of science fiction where we're talking to each other with brain waves or bigger brains or something and telepathically? Like, is that something that, I mean, that's the next level, is not having to have a device to be able to talk to each other.
Well, what about implants? The implanting the devices, so they're not on you; they're in you.
Well, you people that can't learn how to telekinesis, I guess we'll have to get an implant, but the rest of us will just learn telekinesis. We'll get
I
it from the
don't.
dolphin. If you hang out with dolphins enough, you learn how to telekinesis people. Is that the right word? Whatever it's
And
called.
you learn how to swim.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but then it's a lot of tuna conversation.
I'm learning how to breathe out of my ear because I don't have a different hole.
I would not implant anything.
What? You wouldn't get a heart valve or a pacemaker?
Well, those maybe, yeah, but not like a cell phone device or key
Extra
card.
I don't know. What if they made a deal where you just paint your one fingernail and that glues on a thing so you can just flick off a door and you're opening it, or point at a door and you're opening it? So like a watch, except that it's glued onto your fingernail all the time.
Maybe I would be
Plant,
more
that's an
down. Be more down for a watch than for painting my fingernail.
I'm just saying, I think if you paint your fingernail, it's an implant.
Ron Wayne said he's still waiting for Zephram Cochrane to be born so we can achieve warp drive.
He had help.
Well, the first time was just him. The second time he had help.
Maybe it was always that way. You know how time is kind of a circle.
Well, I don't know if that fits in the paradox realm, but the people that the crew of the Enterprise that went back and ended up kind of helping him, they would have known that they went back and helped him, wouldn't they? Because or would they not know?
You remember in Star Trek 4 where Scotty gave the guy the formula to create transparent aluminum?
Yeah.
And Bones basically told him you shouldn't have done that. You changed history. And Scotty said, well, maybe he invented it.
I will say I did not like Star Trek 4. It is all hippy dippy with the whales. Sorry.
Yeah,
I
it was
liked
funny,
one.
though.
I liked Star Trek the motion picture. I know a lot of people thought it was slow and then had a problem with V'ger. I didn't. But 2 is of course the best. And Undiscovered Country. The other ones are kind of Search for Spock, Voyage Home,
All the Star Treks are boring compared to any of the Star Warses. It's just the way it is. But
You can love both.
Yeah,
I have room. I have room in my heart to love both.
Yeah, they're just both different. It's just that Star Trek never tried to be an adventure until the new ones. And now
there's room in my enlarged heart to love more than one franchise.
If you get robotic pieces added to your heart, will you enjoy even more, or will it make you cynical?
It might turn me cold to the world. Ron Wayne says nuclear whistles. I was
Well, what do we achieve first? Some kind of warp drive or a giant mechanical lizard?
a lizard.
I feel like we need a lizard more than we need to be able to whip all around the universe. What's the point of whipping around the universe if you don't have a giant mechanical lizard to back up your adventures?
One other thing I was thinking along lines of Star Trek is the space travel that uses the folding space, so it shortens the distance.
It changes the distance. Yeah, it folds space. Yes, that's the way they'll do it.
What power folds space? What? How do you get it to fold? What grabs this side and brings them together?
Well, it's not like space bends, so it's more like understanding that there's other to the equation, that the three dimensions that we exist in aren't the all of it. And once we figure out that, we just step out and step back in, type of thing. So I see what you're saying, because that's the way to perceive it, but in reality, we're not bending space. That's not really, I don't know if that's possible-ish, but so if you've seen like the concept of a two-dimensional universe where everything's flat,
Yeah.
it would be the idea of picking up a square and dropping it back down over there. They might conceptualize it as taking your flat surface and bending it, but since they only have two dimensions, they don't realize that you could pick up the circle and drop it over there, especially if that other dimension doesn't react with you. I don't know if to call it a dimension, but like the other space that you in whatever, lack of words, but like space that you inhibit or are in while you're traveling from here to there, because you left your two-dimensional realm and you come right back into your two-dimensional realm, it wouldn't take you very long, especially if something were to pick you up or you were to figure out a way. So in other words, what if you just, in that two-dimensional realm, right, there's this two-dimensional world, they don't realize it, but they're tumbling through space, a third dimension that they don't realize because they can't experience the third dimension. But if you let go of your second two-dimensional world and it was tumbling through this third dimension, you would just stay put. Your two-dimensional world would keep tumbling, and now you'd reemerge into your two-dimensional world in a different place. Does that make sense? If you tumbled a frisbee and you had a little dot on the frisbee and the dot could stay still in three-dimensional space, like it would seem like to the two-dimensional space you disappeared and reappeared in some amount of time, but not very much time. And if that makes sense, that's how you would fold space and warp drive or whatever. I don't know if that's the warp drive, but the folding space concept is really just letting go and coming back in with some sort of a predetermined knowledge, either of the tumbling or of understanding that the tumbling doesn't matter, because when you get into quantum, we're always tumbling everywhere, and it's just a matter of understanding that if you want to, you can be here and then there, and it could be as simple as that.
M. Gabriel's out there.
But it's probably a giant magnetic thing, some kind of a giant magnetic pulse, and like boom, boom, and you pulse and like boom, boom, you're over there. So where would we power it? I don't know. Some other type of thing that we haven't figured out yet, taking dark energy and pulling it or something, and some kind of gravity of dark matter that we don't know yet. So maybe some kind of red liquid that we take an eyedropper of.
Well, that's a different kind of trip.
Well, I was thinking of the new Star Treks. They can use this red liquid to do stuff in their spaceships.
I haven't watched any of it. I'm not interested in any of it.
Yeah, they're weird. But Spock is in them. The real Spock is in them, so they're real. They're legitimate. You have to
It's like the ones with Chris Pine, all the Kelvin timeline Star Trek movies. The one with Khan, where Khan has a transporter that can transport him anywhere. Well, you've just made warp drive pointless, because now you can just transport. to any planet that you want, which is stupid. Ron White said, then if you get it wrong, you wind up in the mirror universe where you have goatees and are mean.
No, totally. I think that's how parallel universes and timelines and shit all happen, right?
That's one thing that bugged me about all the Star Trek series. There was, well, two things. They used the mirror universe too many times across, different series.
It's always
And
the same mirror universe. Like there's only one.
yeah. And then too much time travel. It's too easy to try and time travel. Rocket around the sun, or whatever. There was too much. It happened too much. Once.
But at some point, somebody was like, "What do you mean you can run faster than an animal?" And then somebody was like, "What do you mean you can run faster than the water's flowing or whatever, than a rushing water?" And then we figured out boats and then cars and then airplanes. And then somebody was like, "What do you mean you can travel faster than sound?" And then somebody's like, "Well, that'll only ever happen with one person strapped to an engine." And then a little while later, we have passenger planes that are flying faster than sound across the ocean. So I think with Will, maybe with like an interest in pushing it, like I think you can do things that are amazing.
Being able, like the time travel, being able to time travel that that easily. Basically, it was easy for them to do it. It ruins all the storylines because you can change any storyline at any time because you can now time travel.
Would you have time to do that though? Your lifetime is still a certain amount of regenerations of your cells. So even if you learn time travel as a youngin', and you had this like drive to change all of history so that everything was correct, would a lifetime of time travel be able to change? Or you know what I'm saying? Like you'd only be able to do a certain amount of things in your whole lifetime of running around time traveling and changing things. You'd have to have like.
Well, I'm talking specifically in the Star Trek universe.
I'm just saying, and even then, like, what are they going to have? Like a whole department of people that are in charge of, like, their whole job is to every day go back and change pieces of history.
Well, no, it's just any bad guy, any good guy can change any event in the past, even if they just do it once. So any storyline that goes on can be changed at any time for any reason because anybody can time travel anytime they want. As a story aspect, it doesn't work in the Star Trek universe. If you use it once and it's very difficult and good chance of you dying, you just can't do it. Then you can use it as a story aspect, but when they do it as often as they do, it's not every day, but they do it often enough where they show that it's easy enough. So that proves that anybody can change anything at any time. So none of the stories matter anymore.
Would you accept it if they had a whole series of a deal where, like what you just said happened, but it was like Quantum Leap or something, and it was like a whole nother division of Star Trek in the future whose job is to go tip the ball in the basket, and it would be like watching all the old episodes, but then you're seeing another perspective of it where the time traveler jumps in and like moves the rock so it's just in reach, or it like moves the button so that it's further
I probably
away.
would not like that. I mean, I did like Quantum Leap, but
there's been like stories in all kinds of places where like they find the people who are changing time, the time corrector unit, or like there's all kinds of things I've seen, series and things where they address like the concept of like a future unit that goes back and fixes stuff, or creates a timeline that makes that future perfect or something.
I even like the movie Time Cop.
Oh, okay. How about that movie? I can't remember what it's called, where there was some hot chick in it back in the day, and there's airplanes, and they would stop time as a plane was about to wreck, and they'd pull all the humans off of it and replace them with, I think, dead humans or something. And then they would take all the humans from the airplane and bring them to the future because the future was dying. And they would take all these people that were about to die in the present. This was like 1980. In the present, take them to the future so that they'd have humans. You remember that one?
I
And then
don't. This
he was like a
I
kid.
think there's a
lives in the
newer
crowd.
movie that uses a similar plot.
Nobody remembers this one? I think it was like a kid that was about to die in a plane crash, but then they're like, the alien or the future people were like, no, don't take that kid. He lives. And then so that kid was aware of like that this is happening. The plane crashes. He's the only survivor. And then he spends the rest of his life trying to figure out what the hell happened. And then when he's old, I think he's like a plane crash investigator or something. And then he finds a future person who comes. I can't remember the plot. You don't remember that one? It was
I
pretty
don't.
good back in the 80s. Man, it had some hot chick in it, and that's
The
why it was
only thing I could think of, but I mean, I don't even know what the story
Oh,
plot of the Langoliers was, but it had to do with people
like that.
disappearing off a plane.
It's kind of like that. Langoliers was a stupid guy who hates guns, wrote a book about where everything that happens gets ate by these, right? Isn't that what happens? Like
I have
Every
no idea. I never
moment-
watched the movie.
every moment in time. Well, I read the book first, and then I seen the TV series or something. Like every moment in time happens, and then the next moment in time happens, and we travel through these moments in time. Well, the old moments in time get destroyed by these little Pac-Man looking things that run around eating everything, and then there's nothing. And a bunch of people are on an airplane or something. I think I'm in the right movie.
So that plane crash movie you're talking about is Millennium.
Okay, thanks. Nobody remembers that movie?
I don't.
I had to
Maybe it's
Google
worth
it.
watching. It's pretty shitty sci-fi. I mean, it's pretty shitty for the nowadays, but at the time, it was a great theme, like a plot, I guess.
A 1989 film. Let's see who was in it.
A girl. I think it was the girl from that was later in CSI.
Chris Christopherson, Cheryl Ladd,
Oh
and
no, that's
Daniel
right,
J. Trevoni.
Cheryl Ladd. But anyway, so it's about these people that go in an airplane and get like a lightning bolt happens or something, and then they get time shifted, and now they're in this moment in time that's being ate by the Pac-Man things, and they can't figure out what's going on. I think I might be mixing up like 3 of his books because I don't go watch them all the time. But I think that's what that was about. And it was okay back in the day, but after he started writing a book about how much he hates guns, I don't have any respect for that guy anymore.
Ron White said, or you could just strap a satellite dish to the back of your Lazy Boy, give it a spin, try it for yourself. Just watch out for the Morlocks.
Speaking of that, have you seen the new Starlink portable one?
No.
It's almost 8.5 by 11 piece of plastic, and that's it. And it's got a wireless router in it. All you got to do is
Really?
give it power. Yeah, all you got to do is give it power, and you've got internet anywhere in the
Wow.
world. I want one really bad now. They're $599 though, $600.
If you get decent reception wherever you go, that's pretty awesome.
So, hey,
No,
we
you get
worked that.
reception almost everywhere in the world. You get good reception where there's not, where there are a lot of satellites and you're not in competition. But I suspect if you go to a city, you're, not getting full internet speed. And if you go to the middle of nowhere, you're probably not. But it's way better than, it's $600 and then what, 100 and something a month. So it's way cheaper than any kind of satellite or anything.
Yeah, because they've had the travel dishes for DirecTV for a long time for RVs and stuff.
Right. This is just way better because all you got to do is point it up. You don't have to point it at anything.
It's always been the pain is aligning your dish. The last one I had, when we had it put on here, I had them come out and do it. Everywhere else, I just did it myself. Just all you need is a You could look up online where the satellites are. They're for DirecTV, they're down over Mexico. So you get where to point it at, and then before the high definition channels, you could just use an inline meter so you could see the strength of your signal. And then when you had to move to the oval dishes, it made it a little hard because you had to find what direction to point and then also tilt your dish to capture, because there were three or four satellites. So you had to try and get them all into one dish rather than just pointing at one satellite. Yeah. So Gary,
Yes.
is there anything you'd like to plug? Find folks what you got coming up.
So the way it stands right now, it's looking like we probably won't be having the members only chat this Wednesday because my daughter's supposed to be induced Tuesday night, and I'm going to be staying there for probably a night or two waiting for my granddaughter to be born. So if that changes, I will post a show. Otherwise, I'll see everybody on Friday night for Foul Territory at 9 p.m. Central. Also, I have a couple knife videos coming out this week and one on a Phoenix flashlight. So that's what I got going on. Thanks for having me.
You can just use your phone, do it from the hospital, live stream the birth.
There you go.
They probably won't let you.
Probably not.
A lot of hospitals won't let you film. You can take pictures, but not film the birth. Oh, for liability reasons. G-Webs, how about you? What you got coming up?
Nothing. Thanks for hosting.
Are you gonna start doing it every night again,
No.
or?
Wish I could.
No.
I can't figure out how to make that happen.
Oh.
If I was independently wealthy, I would definitely do it. I keep thinking about trying to figure out how to do it, and then I lose money, and I have to go back to trying to pay bills again.
Barbecue, are you still awake? Maybe not. Is he down for the count?
Guns and barbecue.
Just want to say thank you to everybody that was out in the side chat. And if you're watching and didn't say anything, don't be afraid to speak up. Let me know you're out there. I will be doing a chat next Saturday. I have dedication. And if you watch this in replay, leave a comment. Anything we talked about, agree with, disagree with, who's your favorite tennis player? I read all the comments and they are always appreciated. So other than that, I hope everybody has a good rest of the night and go do something good.